I'd like advice. I'm a researcher, so my go-to position is to try to use logic and convince people. And a week or so ago, 2 weeks ago, I was lamenting to one of my colleagues that say as far as anti-Semitism or perspectives on Israel, I haven't been able to convince anybody.
Yeah.
I feel like we go through the exercise and I'm making progress, and when I'm just about there, they say, well, it's terrible.
Yeah.
The Jews are this, the Jews are that. It's so obviously I'm doing the wrong approach. And through like your experience with broadcast, maybe one-on-one is different from when you're trying to reach whole populations. But do you have any guidance for trying to change people's perspectives?
Do you think Israel can do something different?
Can Israel do something different? Good question. Let me think about it. Do you think Israel can do something different?
You're asking the victim to apologize.
No, I think we're trying to find a solution. I don't think it's a matter of victim or a matter of asking. We're trying to find a solution because we are the liberal ones.
Yeah.
We're the ones that, and at least that's how we perceive ourselves.
Yeah.
We're liberals, live and let live. You do you,
Yeah.
I'll do me, all good.
Yeah.
And we keep encountering the other side, and I'm from the left wing of the country, I believe, and again, very liberal. And one of the things that was in my face in October was that even if you provide some kind of an environment and you try to live and try to let live, again, and there are discussions about what extent it really happened.
Yeah.
But I think it did happen to a large extent. And there is no real separation that happens. We are stuck, head against the wall, trying to do something, trying to get away, trying to live our lives.
So, Jeff, would you mind if I maybe try to answer the question?
Please.
Because the question we're asking is, can Israel do something different? And I think it's a great question. I'm also liberal, by the way. And I want to answer the question by first asking a question, as I'm also a rabbi. My question to you would be, your organization that broadcasts to the Middle East, I have to assume, is an outgrowth of an organization which was Radio Free Europe during the Cold War. In the Cold War, America was broadcasting to people living in communist countries to essentially tell the story of what it was like in the West: capitalism, freedom, free markets, etc., and to tell them there was an alternative to life in Russia, standing online for a week to get some bread. You come into a supermarket in America, and you pull the Cheerios and the chocolate bars off the shelf. Now, communism lasted from 1917 until 89, 90, 91, so approximately 50-something years, right? And then, in one day, it just collapsed. 70 years, thank you. So, it just collapsed. It imploded, essentially. Now you go to an Islamic world, which is not a political structure, it's really religious. You're talking about 21 countries in the Middle East that are Islamic countries of some sort. 20 maybe Arabic ones, and one Iran, an Islamic country. And you're broadcasting to that world. And Islam is, from the 7th century, so it goes back quite a way. And we're asking ourselves, can we reconcile with that world? Right? And so the argument is, well, there's been peace with this country and that country and the Abraham Accords, and there's some trade. And we need, I think, to answer your question, to zoom in on this distinction between broadcasting to communists and broadcasting to people who live in the Islamic world. We, being the West, or Jews, or Israelis, have principles and values. You want to be able to surf on Yom Kippur in Tel Aviv, in a Jewish state, and not get hit over the head by a rabbi. Right? You want to be able to travel on a bus in Tel Aviv on the Sabbath And you expect that in an Israeli, Jewish, democratic country, we're going to live together and we're going to treat our Arab population with equal rights and equal votes. That's what we ideally most of us, 90% of Jews believe in that ideal state of Israel. And we assume and we almost want to force those principles and values on a world that actually doesn't believe in those things. They just don't. Most of these regimes don't believe. And I salute you for what you're doing, and it's an unbelievable institution, which is why we invited you to speak here tonight. If there's one thing October 7th taught us in the West, and if there's one thing October 7th taught us as Israelis, I'm not an Israeli, I'm a sixth generation American, but I'm a Jew, and it is the promised land for the Jewish people, and the one thing that we liberals, quote unquote, need to wake up and smell the coffee is you're trying to impose something on people that don't really believe in the same things. They don't believe in the same values that we believe in. And if you haven't woken up on October 7th, you're still in a delusion. I mean, it's so black and white. It's so in front of us that the people who worked in the gardens of the kibbutzim from Gaza came back to slaughter the people in those kibbutzim. Men, women, children in ovens, and raped them and slaughtered them. That the people that allegedly, the leftists, the secular Israeli kibbutzim, the socialists of Israel, who had been since Oslo dreaming of some dream, some utopian messianic era. I'm Chabadnik, I believe in Mashiach. We attached ourselves to a messianic notion that we are going to live in peace while they, for a decade and more, have been digging tunnels to wage war and slaughter the people they were talking to. I mean, this is what has happened. I'm going to finish, I promise. This is what has happened to us. We're so shocked. We're so shocked because it means we've been living a lie. And people don't like to admit to the fact that we've lived a lie. It's very difficult. It actually offends our egos. It offends our egos. And we love peace so much as Jews because that's what we've been taught every single day in our prayers, religious, secular, Passover, Hanukkah, Purim. It's what we brought to the world as a distinct nation, not apologizing for being a chosen people that are supposed to teach the world peace. And so we got so hit on the head that we've lived a lie that we don't want to admit it. Because to admit it, to actually admit, today, as Westerners and as an Israelis and or as Jews, that there is a segment of the world's population that has zero interest in what you're talking about, dismantles our Weltanschauung. It totally disrupts it and it destroys it. And you can trade and you can sell and you can buy and you can travel to those countries and you can sleep with them. You can date them and sleep with them and have kids with them and do business with them and have joint ventures with them. But if you haven't woken up to the notion that there's a big divide in the world today, and we have to declare, we have to come to terms with it, we have to declare it. Frankly, a lot of it has to be destroyed in order for there to be a world order. It just has to be utterly destroyed. People who put babies in ovens have no place in human civilization. They just don't. People who send rockets to playgrounds consciously, constantly, and train thousands of people to do that as a civilization, literally as a civilization, whether they're in Gaza, or they're in Lebanon, or they're in Tehran, or they're marching on the streets in 21 countries, promoting those convictions and promoting those policies. We haven't seen demonstrations in any Arab country. Not one. I mean, have you seen a demonstration in a Muslim country anywhere in the world against October 7th? So when you start seeing those demonstrations, and when you start seeing a mass world outcry from the Islamic world for peace, the way you see it from the Jewish people, the way you see it from some European countries that are still sane, and from the United States, then you can have a conversation. And until then, I just hope that we have woken up to the reality. I salute you for a task that I think is going to be a lot more difficult than 1989 and 1991, where the wall just came down, and all that broadcasting in retrospect had been so important because people realized it was on eggshells to begin with. It didn't have a third leg. In your case, you're going to have to figure out what speaks to a people who, since the 7th century, have taught generations of people a very different narrative about the world order and about people that are not like them, and what that message is going to have to be. And you said you don't want to indoctrinate, which I respect, and you don't want to be condescending, and we don't want to push. We failed in Iraq, we failed in a lot of countries. We don't want to push America in. How to wake up the Islamic world and the Arabic world to coexistence with the West and everything the West has contributed is Herculean. And you say long-term, I agree. It has to be long-term. Because it's a full flip. It's a full turnover of the way people think in a civilization about the world. They have not come out of the Dark Ages. Let's just call it what it is. I mean, when is the last time we bought a computer, a piece of software, a freaking light bulb, a piece of medicine? I mean, anything, frankly, other than oil from that region of the world. I mean, and so what does that tell us about what we're dealing with? What we're dealing with. And I respect their right to go to mosques and to pray and to be religious and to worship Muhammad and to go to Mecca, just like I want to go to my shul, my synagogue, and my temple every single day. And I hope Christians want to go to their churches and Catholics to theirs and Mormons to those. But the extent to which we can sit down and reconcile with a civilization like that is, this is it. October 7th told it to us. And the more we want to go back to the old narratives and try to push it again and push it again and push it again, you know what they're going to do? They're coming back. They're not going anywhere. So thank you, and thank you for being a liberal, and thank you for being here tonight. And I know that Isaac Gilmore, who fought for the U.S. military for many years, and in the Marine Corps, right? SEAL, Navy SEAL, who's visiting us tonight and spoke here once a couple of months ago, has something to say. So I'll let you take it from there. You got to stand up there.
Well, now I have a huge tie-in, or at least I got to make one up. Thank you again for being here, and I really appreciate what you're doing. And there's a question I have for you based on something I'm embarking on when I get to the end of this. But as Rabbi Shmully was just going on a bit of a rant, a beautiful one, I think there's a corollary to some of the other questions that were proffered tonight around where the West is. And just for some context, I was in the SEAL teams from right after 9/11 until 2011. And I've worked in a lot of different industries, but some other aspects of my experience that have weight here is in 2015 to 16, myself as a private individual with an Israeli did a deal with the Emirati government to go after Al-Qaeda in Yemen to keep them from doing what the Houthis were doing. And the reason there was need for us was I think, misplaced compassion for the Houthis based on Saudi's behavior allowed the Houthis to be intact, a vacuum to be created in southern Yemen that Al-Qaeda and ACAP was kind of slipped into. The really unique part about that experience was our broker was a former head of security for Yasser Arafat who was exiled by Mahmoud Abbas because he probably could have wrangled Hamas a little bit. And at that moment, Sisi, Israel, Bahrain, a couple other countries would have actually liked to have seen him as president of Palestine. And where this comes back to media and sentiment is much like the Abraham Accords, because they happened under Trump and because of how easy it is to disdain him, most people, especially on the liberal side in the US, don't know what the Abraham Accords are. And BBC did a documentary on what we did recently, and so you have an Israeli, a Palestinian, an American working with an Arab monarchy against Al-Qaeda, and the BBC was big bad Americans go kill poor Yemenis. That shallow, when there was so much depth to be had. And in the tie-in to understanding where the world is, the Islamic world is in kind of their life cycle, and the lack of separation of church and state, so to speak, where there are no really secular laws, and it's very hard to install democracy when you do have the will and the authority of the imams. A refusal to understand that, the denial I think that exists somewhat in Israel, is also the dissonance we have in the US and the West at large, and the belief that this veneer that we've created just magically continues on its own. And I'm incredibly optimistic for the future of the West. I see where we are as kind of a natural step If you create self-determination and an intentionally non-homogeneous nation and give it 250 years, human nature is to bracket. We're going to find ourselves with self-obsession and all the corresponding lack of purpose and community that comes with that, which then leaves people vulnerable to literally just, go on their Instagram and it's George Floyd, it's Ukraine, it's Palestine, with not much further thought.